Hi, and welcome to our program, Nutritional Medicine by Lab Analysis. My name is Dr. Cyrus Thomas. I've been a chiropractic physician by licensure, and I've been practicing nutrition and some homeopathic medicine, which I was trained to do in India for some 35 years now. So I've got a good feel for what a patient goes through when they decide they want to use nutrition to get well. It's a very complicated field. It is probably the most complicated branch of medicine that there is. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that's rather complicated itself. We're going to talk about nutrition for pathogens, and that means we're talking about the immune system, how to boost the immune system to deal with the pathogens in your body. Sometimes it does require taking an antifungal, an antiparasitic, an antibiotic, but many times we can do the job without having to use the pharmacy, and using, instead of pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals to do the job. They're much more gentle. They don't have the 30 side effects per item that we see in the physician's desk reference. Pathogens are bacteria, viruses, protozoa, fungi, and parasites. So let me show you a little bit what those are like. We'll go to camera 2 if we can. That is a bacteria. They are actually living little creatures, and they can wiggle their little hairs on the outside and move around the body. We have about 3.5 pounds of them inside of us. And there are actually more bacteria in our body than there are people on the planet, and we're up to 7 billion now. A virus, however, is very different. A virus is not a living thing. It is a protein coat that pretty much just surrounds some DNA or RNA material, genetic material, and it can land on a surface of a cell, and it can inject its DNA or RNA into the cell, and that coded information tends to take over the cell and forces it to make new segments of DNA or RNA like the original. So in that sense it reproduces, but never on its own. This is a protozoa. They are different than bacteria. They're a little more advanced. They have organelles inside them. They have parts of them in a nucleus that is more advanced evolutionarily. They also have mitochondria to make energy. This is a parasite. They are much larger. There are intracellular parasites, but they can also get up to 12 feet long in somebody's intestines. So we have to deal with these things. This is an actual photograph of a round virus. That's more like a spaceship simulation over there. These round viruses, we have some antiviral substances that we give people. We know about herbs that have been antiviral and being used in the Amazon and in Africa. We have Western herbs, we have Oriental herbs, we have quite a plethora of things to use to deal with bacteria, viruses, protozoa, fungi, and parasites, all in the nutraceutical realm. There's 3 major concerns in nutrition. One is malnutrition, just not getting enough of what you need into your body. This can also mean malabsorption, because if you're not absorbing well, you're not going to get it into your body. We have to worry about toxins. A lot of toxins come from our environment now. They can be categorized. We could do 3 shows on toxins alone. And then, of course, pathogens, which is today's topic: bacteria, viruses, fungi, and protozoa. There are 44 essential nutrients whose lack of produces malnutrition. So you could be eating enough food, calorie-wise. You could be absorbing it fairly well, and yet you might be missing some of the 44 essential nutrients that, if you do, if you are missing any of them, you can be malnourished because of that. And that's what blood testing and hair analysis and saliva analysis and stool analysis is all about. It's all about finding out if you're getting everything that you know that you need. In other words, it's almost as if taking supplements is a way to make your food as perfect as it can possibly be. Maybe make the food like it used to be 100 years ago before we began mass producing everything. There are thousands of toxins in most diets, and that's because, I don't know, we're dumping some 60 million tons of chemicals onto poor planet Earth every day. A lot of it goes into agriculture. A lot of it has become pharmaceutical meds that are in our bodies. 300 pathogens that produce disease. Within this group, 300 different types that can produce disease. Quite amazing. So let's talk about toxins. Toxins that we can deal with very quickly are gluten in our grains, opioid peptides, which are in is a wheat germ and wheat germ agglutinin, which is a grain lectin. Okay, so most of the grains are going to have gluten. Almost all of them have opioids. That's what keeps us addicted pretty much to flour and cereal and grains. We have a love affair with white flour on planet Earth right now. If you walk into Starbucks or any coffee shop, almost everything you see is white flour, white flour, white flour. What is it about this substance? Well, we think now that it's the opioids that are in it that actually keep us addicted to this strange substance. There are also alpha amylase inhibitors in foods. Rats fed this show the digestive and growth problems. Beans have a lectin called phytohemagglutinin, and it blocks stomach acid. Soy and legumes, which are, of course, peanuts, chickpeas, lentils, beans, and peanuts. Soy and legumes have high levels of phytosterols, which can cause heart disease and tender and liver damage. And of course, fructose, especially high fructose corn syrup, we find in most products today. If you buy processed food, you're getting high fructose corn syrup. It tends to rob the liver of ATP. It forces the liver to not be able to do what it normally does because it's preoccupied turning fructose back into glucose. Vegetables or oils, the worst thing ever done to mankind was to sell them on vegetable oils. Of course, they told everybody that, look, you see lard and butter, how hard they are. Well, when you eat them, they become hard in your blood. It's just not true because the temperature of your body keeps them liquefied. Turns out that those are the worst oils for atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis, all the forms of heart disease. And instead, we should be using the oils that are naturally found in animal products, meats, cheeses, dairy. Also, coconut oil and olive oil are vegan types of oil that can be consumed that are not like the regular vegetable oils that were sold to us, which were safflower, canola, corn, peanut, soy. Those oils just create lots of problems. Eating wheat causes large amounts of food to be excreted instead of digested. Well, evolutionarily, that worked out, you see, for the grasses, which is what cereals are. They're wheat, they're grasses. And the part that we eat is the seed of the grass, so we call them grass seeds. Grass seeds make it so that you don't digest well in your intestine. You have more stool to excrete. That tends to spread the seeds better, and that makes them more abundant. Cummings said that the effect of dietary fiber on fecal weight and composition, in a paper titled by that, that's where this quote comes from. Eating wheat causes large amounts of food to be excreted instead of digested. Got a little problem advancing this. I don't know why. I got a bar at the bottom there. There we go. Prolamines are a group of plant storage glycoproteins having a high proline content and found in the seeds of cereal grains. Now, these are all when you say gluten-free, what we're really talking about is gliadin in wheat. We're really talking about hordein in barley, secalin in rye, rein in corn, kefferin in sorghum, and avenin in oats. Collectively, they are called prolamines, and they're proline content. Buckwheat contains no gluten and can consequently be eaten by people with celiac disease or gluten allergies. Rice also contains no gluten. Rice does, however, contain 4 toxins, but these toxins are nullified. In other words, their shape is changed in space as they are cooked. So the cooking of rice makes it a non-toxic grain. It's about the only grain that is toxic-free for us. Wheat germ agglutinin, or WGA, is a lectin that protects wheat from insects, yeast, and bacteria. 83% of the adult population develops observable gut inflammation after eating gluten. That means that you take 100 people and you give them gluten to eat, and then you observe what has happened inside their intestines. 83 out of 100 will show that they have inflammation from what they have eaten. Now, most people on Earth, other than rice-eating countries, are eating some of this all the time. It's causing a lot of problems. 30% make an anti-wheat gluten antibody in the intestines, and 11% make it in the systemic circulation, that means in your blood, but only 4% have what we call celiac. Now, just because you don't have celiac doesn't mean that you're not one of the 83 out of 100 that develops gut inflammation, observable gut inflammation, after they've consumed wheat. Something to think about. Now let's talk about pathogens some more. If you get the essential nutrients in your diet, if you have eliminated toxins from your diet, you may still wish to deal with the third root cause of ill health, infections. We have over 1,000 species of bacteria in us, 100 trillion bacteria weighing 2.5 pounds. I've also read 3.5 pounds. 10 bacteria per cell. Alaskan Eskimos, 94% of them had cytomegalovirus, 90% had herpes simplex 1, 38% had simplex 2, 80% had H. pylori in the stomach, 42% had C. pneumoniae. Now, that's even people in a very cold climate where you'd think that things could not grow and fester. Are diseases caused by chronic infections once the immune system can no longer put up a good defense? So let's say we're going along, we're making mistakes with our diet, and all of a sudden it really changes. It gets a lot worse. Well, that might be where the ill effects of an improper diet finally, the straw broke the camel's back, and now pathogens in the body are able to take advantage of the person. They are opportunistic. Now, to go in there and just kill them won't really cure the problem. It may give some relief for a while. Antifungals do this quite often. Antibiotics do this quite often. It does give temporary relief. But the cure lies in correcting the situation that allowed these pathogens to be opportunistic in the first place. Does the pathogen cause the ailment, or is it just opportunistic? We believe it's opportunistic, and we can prove that. In Parkinson's, you have nocardia, and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, we have cyanobacterias. In schizophrenia, we have found toxoplasmosis gondii, the same in mood disorders and the same in cognitive impairment. So we can associate pathogens with almost every disease, but that does not mean that the pathogen caused the disease. They may have been there already, just waiting for the opportunity when the immune system became so weak that the pathogen could take advantage. Parasites. According to a recent study, 85% of Americans have at least one form of intestinal or organ parasite feeding off their bodies, there are two major groups: the protozoa, which are single-celled parasites, and worms, which are much larger. There's an ectoparasite, which live on the outside of us, like lice, bedbugs, and scabies. And there's endoparasites, which are inside of us, like Giardia, malaria, trichomonas, and Chagas disease. Common worms are pinworms, tapeworms, roundworms, and liver flukes. These are nasty, and 85% of Americans have at least one form of this parasite. Now, there are a lot of good nutrients and herbs to take to kill parasites. Many of you have probably looked it up online, read a book, tried a regimen for 21 days or even 90, and attempted to get rid of these opportunistic creatures by taking wormwood and other herbs and substances. Stool and saliva testing can be done. The saliva measures the antigen that goes against the parasite. And stool testing can actually see the parasite. So we do both of those. We get information, you go on a program, we retest, and we find out how well you're doing. So it's quite empirical and scientific that way. How do we know which diet is right for you? A carnivore strategy, which is more like the Atkins diet, an herbivore strategy, which is more like omnivore would be a zone diet. An herbivore strategy would be for those tending towards vegetarianism, veganism. Well, we find out by testing. By testing, we can find out how strong you are, how well your immune system is doing, look at your liver profile, thyroid profile, lipid profile. We will know what strategy can work best for you. This is a smart way to do dietary experimentation, if you will, in your life, to do it backed up by solid science. We're using medical analysis by blood tests, urine tests, saliva, stool tests, hair analysis, and we're using nutrients to do the treatment, as well as dietary recommendations. So to do the beginning blood test, we do 52 elements in the beginning blood test, and we color code the results: warning, high risk, and critical. And this person's results were not so good. When they came in later on, many of the reds had turned to yellow, the blues had gone. So this person did quite well on the nutrient regime. This shows for people who suspect that maybe the answer lies in natural medicines. And for people who want to not feel stuck feeling toxic and who want to avoid surgeries, and for people who suspect that nutrition doesn't just mean shopping in a health food store, that at its deeper level, when utilized as a medical science, it has much to offer them. This program will show you a safe way to take nutrients to cure chronic ailments. This safe way is based on blood tests, and the doctor has a way to follow up to know the effectiveness of the nutritional medicines. That's the whole idea about retesting, is that it is a follow-up. It shows you how well you did in certain areas. It tells you where certain areas still need attention, and it tells you where certain areas were not addressed as well as they could have been. It's an educational process for the practitioner and the patient as well to go through this, and it can take a year or two to do it well. By retesting and comparing the new results to the previous results. That's the whole idea of learning. That's empirical learning. Pharmaceuticals give support, but once nutraceuticals begin to affect the cure, then follow-up blood and hair tests will show that it is wise to reduce them. This is a hair follicle in the scalp. It's fed by an artery and a vein. That's how we get the atoms and molecules that make up the hair itself. They had to come from somewhere. Well, they came from your blood. And when it uses blood to make the hair, it pulls sort of randomly from the blood, and heavy toxic elements will go into the hair. It's almost as if the scalp can use a hair shaft to take things out of the body. So we like to test and see how well it's doing that, and if it's not, to augment that process. We test for all of these heavy metals, lead, mercury, arsenic, etc. We also test for good metals and for minerals that are in the hair, and we color code the results. We use oral chelation a lot to rid the body of toxic heavy metals. The hair contains minerals and essential elements like copper, chromium, iodine, sulfur, and iron, 22 essential elements. And the key parts to doing this kind of testing is that we do many more tests, 52 plus the hair analysis of about another 33. So we're doing 85 tests, including cancer markers. In addition to the 85, we have 4 different cancer markers which are quite popular, and they will tell us not only about cancer development or too many cancer cells in the blood, even though a tumor may not have formed yet, but it will also tell us about inflammation in the body. We use a healthy range. We use a more narrow range. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We use lab results. We compare the lab results, your lab results, to the lab results of other people who are doing nutrition, so that you're not being compared to somebody who eats all processed food and is drinking a 6-pack or 2 of beer a day. And then, of course, our follow-up studies are listed in parallel to the previous study, so we can see right away what has taken place. If you were to design a better system, could you? We don't think so. The results speak for themselves. Visit my website. Reason being, we have a number of different ailments there and testimonials, and you can see if you resonate with this type of care. My website is Alternative Integrative Medicines with an S .info, and I'll put this up a little later as well. Do eat about 20% of your total calories from starchy tubers, rice, fruits, and berries. About 400 carb calories per day. That's about 2 cups of white rice, or a cup of white rice and a cup of sweet potato. It can be mixed up. Now, if you have irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, ailments of that nature, you need to be on a very specific, what's called a ketogenic diet, and it needs to be done safely with some carbs. So don't just do a no-carb diet if you have irritable bowel issues. Eat as many vegetables as you like, but don't count any calories from vegetables. Be sure to include seaweed for iodine, although some people are saying now that seaweed is a bit toxic because of our ocean, and so they're getting iodine from a nutritional source. And, you know, about 250 micrograms can be a good amount to take per day. It's very safe, it's very low. Iodine has been given in massive doses in the past by different doctors in Europe, and had what they said were quite good results. In total, you might eat 1.5 pounds of plant food per day. Email me and I'll send you the details on the toxins in grains and legumes at Cyrooski, that's what the kids used to call me, at yahoo.com. Cyrooski. When we eat too much sugar or grains, sugars are high in blood, and the body compensates by making it into fat and taking it out of the blood, keeping the sugar balanced. After a lot of fat has been made, the body fails. It can't make any more fat, and it gives way to diabetes, a true failing. Eliminate omega-6 fats. Cut your fructose. Replace grains and legumes with fatty foods. Normalize thyroid function. Eat nutritious foods. Take supplements, and do intermittent fasting, where you only eat during an 8-hour period per day, and then you fast essentially 16 hours. That gives your liver time to catch up for all of the meals that you ate. Make dieting a way of life forever. Not really a diet to lose weight, but make the regime that you've designed for your best health a way of life. Let's look at diets that aid the immune system. Symptoms of chronic infections: cardiovascular disease, dementia and memory loss, neuropathy and loss of balance and falls, grouchy old man syndrome, cold intolerance, inflamed and arthritic joints. These are all symptoms of chronic infection. Will antibiotics help? Obviously not. These ailments are all considered incurable. We must support our immune systems and create our own antibiotics. Our own antibiotics, they seem to work really well if people will just make the switch over to sensible living. Good advice for all three of the strategies we talked, remember the carnivore, the herbivore, and the omnivore strategies, is to keep the blood glucose and insulin low, lower the omega-6s, avoid toxic foods, optimize vitamin D levels, supplement with a high dose iodine or low dose, 1 to 50 milligrams or even 250 micrograms per day. Dr. Georgi gave 720 milligrams for acute cases long ago. Today we consider that pretty high. Restrict your protein, which is easy to do because naturally we know when we've had enough protein, we can feel it. Regular short fasts of the 16 hours. Make sure you sleep well, melatonin if necessary, and relieve stress. In the omnivore strategy, we do coconut oil and fiber. In the herbivore strategy, we do slight undereating of glucose to force the synthesis of glucose from protein. And in the carnivore strategy, we do 400 calories of simple carbs to keep the protein low to about 15%, no fat restriction. We use coconut oil. It's also called the Pacific Island diet. In the herbivore strategy, there are many details to these, exactly how to do it. We're running out of time a little bit. And foundational nutrients for detox include, for kidney and urinary detox, salt, potassium, fluids, and adequate protein. For detox through sweat, salt, potassium, fluid, activity, saunas, liver detox. We have details for bile production. We can aid fecal excretion in many ways. We're running out of time. I had so much to say today. Thanks to the Community Media Center of Marin for making this possible. Thank you to Vita Flores, our director. We hope you watch our show. It airs every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And let's see, here's my picture of my office, my website, integrativealternativemedicines.info, and my phone number somewhere. I think it's gone. The phone number is 415-847-5020. Thanks for watching. May you be in good health.